That's right, Nadia. Well, they're at an extremely high level. Firstly, there's a lot of Qatari investment in France, in hotels, in football, in defense as well. And actually, there's talk now of expanding that into new technologies as well. Qatar interested in diversifying its investments in France. That's something that is being discussed at this very moment between the Emir of Qatar and President Emmanuel Macron. The Emir was just welcomed here at the presidential palace a few moments ago. Militarily, there is a bilateral defense treaty which dates back to the mid-1990s, and under this, both countries are committed to helping each other in the case of any military aggression. There's also several hundred French soldiers at the Al Udeid base in Qatar. So France's military involvement in Qatar is actually deeper than many people realize, even though, of course, the American presence is well known in Qatar. But all this helps to explain, Nadia, why France has such a high stake in trying to resolve this Gulf crisis, which now dates back to just over a year, 13 months exactly. And France really wants this crisis to be resolved because, of course, it has both economic and military interests in Qatar.
That's right. That's the subtext to this meet, the political and diplomatic subtext. Qatar is working to end its isolation and weather the storm of that Saudi-led blockade.
That's right. Well, you remember when the Saudi-led blockade was imposed in June 2017, the Saudis worked very hard to try and persuade other countries that Qatar was supporting terrorism and that it wasn't a respectable partner. And Qatar has been pushing back against that very hard for the last year. It's been touting its cooperation in various international fora with the Interpol at the United Nations to make it clear to other countries outside the Gulf region that the Saudi allegations are not true. So that's really something Qatar has been pushing quite hard, and it seems to have paid dividends because, for example, US President Donald Trump in January of this year lauded Qatar's efforts to fight terrorism, as he put it, and that was a complete U-turn because, remember, Trump had been backing the Saudi position to the hilt at the beginning of the crisis. So we've had Qatar really having these relations developing with many countries, the US, with France, with Britain, with Germany. It's had an outreach towards Europe. And there was a very important economic report by the IMF at the end of May, which said that Qatar's economic growth remains robust despite that blockade. So I think the visit of the Emir here will be seen as yet another symbol of that Qatari consolidation on the world stage, even though obviously that won't be to the liking at all of the Saudi strategy and the strategy of Saudi Arabia and its allies in the Gulf.